Yehudi Finkelstein says, can only Catholics perform exorcisms, or can other Christians perform them, like in the famous instance where American televangelist Kenneth Copeland exorcised COVID-19?
Well, I don't know who exorcised COVID-19. I never heard that story. And
Neither do I know. But can only Catholics perform it?
Oh no, of course not. There are exorcists in most religions.
Yeah, my wife did one. So you know.
Did it work? Are you better now?
Apparently. Yes, it was on me, and yes, I'm okay.
I want to just underscore a point, Professor. You know, it's this whole matter of evidence. There's a certain amount of evidence out there. Some people believe it, some people don't. Some people are just ignorant of the evidence. But you know, it's not myself or Einstein or people's understanding of modern science which determines the evidence we have. It's God who gives us the evidence for his mysterious purposes, and people have to decide individually. I'm not a judgmental person. I don't judge people who don't agree with me as malevolent, but the question is, what evidence would it take to convince you? And there's some people, no matter what evidence you give them, they're not going to believe you. And you know, that's on them.
I mean, it's interesting though that you have to have special training. So my wife was in office in the Lutheran Church of Finland. You can't just go and do an exorcism. You have to go on a course where you're specifically taught how to do it. You can't just do one. So they take it quite seriously. It's quite interesting that.
I think it's more than a course. I mean, you know, in the early church, and there were Jewish exorcists at the time. You know, the Jewish historian Josephus talks about possessions in Jewish exorcism. So almost all religions have had something like exorcist. On the other hand, in the early church, it was kind of widely believed that if you were a Christian believer, you were empowered to do an exorcism. The reason the church, after a while, decided it's best that it be confined to clergy was not because that's not theoretically possible. It was because there were so many abuses. And even in today's world, you know, there are plenty of good-hearted people who try to drive out spirits. Many of them are ineffective. Many of them are not well-trained. Many of them are not even holy enough to do this. I mean, you know, you have to be a man of God, in my opinion, to have success in this area. And even the success is not because of the particular exorcist, it's because your prayers are effective. It's ultimately God who drives demons out.
Okay, we have a question from Charlie Pepper on Odyssey. Thank you, sir. And he says, I recently watched an Orthodox priest talking about the paranormal. He stated that there are no ghosts, but there are only demons. Having had a few experiences myself, I found this to make sense. To think of our dear departed wandering around the earth rather than being in heaven is bloody awful. Okay, what do you think of that? Are there no ghosts?
There's a whole controversy about ghosts. You know, we don't necessarily have the time to get into it. But what I would say is, number one, there's plenty of evidence that, you know, ghostly figures have been seen by countless people throughout history. There was a famous Catholic priest who said ghosts get reported by all cultures, educated people, uneducated people, religious people, non-religious people. So there's something there. The question becomes how to explain it. And sometimes it can be simple, you know, misperception of something. Other times, if these ghosts really do wreak havoc on a place or a person, let's say they're doing something truly harmful. Again, it comes back to my argument. They seem to be spirits. They're committing evil, at least in these cases. They're evil spirits, or what we would say is demons.
Okay, the next question comes from Hibernian Perspective. Thank you, sir. And he says, what does our guest think of the mainstream media pushing pop Satanism in the music and film industries, or the establishment approved influencer dabbling with Aleister Crowley? If the government are the elite, then are these the new libertine priestly class?
Well, I mean, Aleister Crowley, I've studied his life. He was truly a bad egg.
He was a mean kind of a guy.
He was a nasty piece of work. And he apparently was some kind of Satanist of whatever ilk, and there are different varieties. In terms of Satanism infiltrating, music and the media, it seems to me a pretty pathetic trait. I don't think it's a particularly healthy one, but it's not like I go around seeing the devil everywhere. A lot of this is just because people want to sell their music.
Okay, thank you. The next question comes from Pringle3123, and he says, how do we most definitely rule out the possibility of mass delusion?
Well, mass delusion and mass hallucinations, these are somewhat nebulous concepts. There haven't been really mass hallucinations in history. If you talk about mass delusions, what are you talking about? Are you saying that you think that all particular beliefs, say in evil spirits, are delusional? I mean, the vast majority of people throughout history have believed in evil spirits, so it's hardly a mass delusion. Now, there are conspiracy theories. My country, the U.S., is prone to quite a few conspiracy theories, in my opinion, including hysteria about Satanism. So there are these mass delusions, and how do you combat them? You combat them with, truth and precise reflections and observations.